Tycoon witnesses pregnant ex-wife street accident. The astonishing consequences will involve twins. The penthouse is quiet now, save for the faint hum of the city outside. The golden light of dusk has faded, leaving behind a soft twilight glow that bathes the room in shadows. Ethan sits at the head of the table, his posture rigid, as if holding himself together against some unseen force. His hands, strong, capable hands that have signed billion-dollar deals, are trembling ever so slightly around the glass of whiskey. He doesn't drink it quickly. Instead, he lets it sit there, untouched for long moments, like a prop in a play he no longer wants to perform. "Why do I even bother?" he murmurs again, though this time louder, angrier. His voice cuts through the stillness of the room, sharp and bitter. She's gone. She made her choice. But deep down, he knows it wasn't just her choice. It was theirs. A fracture built over years of neglect, miscommunication, and pride. He remembers the arguments vividly, each one etched into his memory like scars on skin. "Ethan, when was the last time we had dinner together without your phone buzzing every 5 minutes?" Her voice had been calm then, but laced with hurt. "Do you even remember what it feels like to be present?" And he hadn't known how to answer because, truthfully, he didn't. He'd poured all his energy into building Carter Enterprises, climbing higher and higher until he forgot why he started in the first place. Somewhere along the way, Mia stopped being his partner and became, well, an afterthought. At least that's how she must have felt. He slams the glass onto the table, startling himself. The sound reverberates through the empty space, echoing back at him like a taunt. For a brief second, he closes his eyes, pinching the bridge of his nose as if trying to block out the memories. But they come anyway, unbidden and relentless. There's the image of her standing in the doorway of their old house, suitcase in hand, tears streaming down her face. "I can't keep doing this," she'd said, her voice breaking. "I love you, Ethan, but I can't live like this anymore." At the time, he'd stood frozen, unable to respond, too proud to beg, too stubborn to admit he was wrong. And then she was gone, slipping out of his life as quietly as the sun dips below the horizon. Now, here he is, years later, haunted by the ghost of what they once were. He leans forward, resting his elbows on the table, his head in his hands. His shoulders shake, not with sobs, but with something heavier, more suffocating. Regret, shame, longing. "I should have fought for her," he says aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "I should have tried harder." The irony isn't lost on him. Here he is, a man who has conquered boardrooms, negotiated multimillion-dollar deals, and built an empire from scratch. And yet, when it came to the one person who mattered most, he failed spectacularly. Failed to listen. Failed to understand. Failed to love the way she deserved. A knock at the door pulls him from his thoughts. It's his assistant again, reminding him about the meeting. But he waves her off with a curt, "Tell them I'll call in remotely." Tonight, he doesn't have the strength to put on a mask, to pretend he's okay when he's anything but. Instead, he walks over to the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city below. Thousands of lives moving in sync, unaware of the storm raging inside him. He thinks about Mia, what she's doing right now, where she is, if she ever thinks about him. Does she hate him? Or worse, does she not care at all? His reflection stares back at him in the glass, pale and hollow-eyed. The strange, he thinks, how success can make you feel so utterly alone. How money can buy almost anything, except peace of mind. As the night deepens, Ethan pours himself another drink, though he doesn't touch it. Instead, he sinks into the leather armchair by the window, letting the darkness envelop him. He closes his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, he allows himself to imagine a different life. One where he didn't lose her, where they're still together, happy. But reality crashes back in like a wave, pulling him under. Tomorrow, he'll wake up and put on his armor again, pretending to be the man everyone expects him to be. But tonight he lets himself break. How does it feel to witness this unraveling? To see a man stripped bare of his titles, his wealth, his power, and left with nothing but regret? Because that's who Ethan Carter is beneath the surface. A man searching for redemption, even if he doesn't know where to start. Cut to a quiet morning in that very town. The sun rises over the Pacific Ocean, casting a golden glow across the sleepy streets of Carmel by the sea. Mia stands on the porch of her modest rental home, adjusting the strap of her camera bag as she prepares for a day of work. Her belly is noticeably rounded now, a testament to the new life, or rather, lives, growing inside her. She moves slowly, carefully, her hand resting instinctively on her stomach as if to reassure herself that everything is okay. "Mia!" calls a cheerful voice from down the street. It's Sophie, her neighbor and closest friend since moving here. "You heading out already? Need me to carry anything?" Mia smiles softly, though there's a flicker of sadness in her eyes that only someone who knows her well would notice. "No, I'm fine, sophomore. Just a few shots at the beach today. Nothing too heavy." Sophie approaches, concern etched on her face. "Are you sure? You've been pushing yourself lately. Those twins aren't exactly lightweights, you know." "I know," Mia replies with a small laugh, though it doesn't quite reach her eyes. "But I need to keep working. Bills don't pay themselves." Sophie hesitates, then places a gentle hand on Mia's arm. "You don't have to do this alone, you know. If you ever need help, I'm not alone." Mia interrupts quickly, perhaps too quickly, but her voice softens as she adds, "I have you, and I have them." She glances down at her belly, her expression bittersweet. There's a long pause before Sophie speaks again, her tone cautious. "Do you ever think about telling him?" Mia stiffens, her smile faltering. For a moment, she doesn't respond, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Then, quietly, she says, "He made his choice a long time ago, sophomore. He chose his empire over us. Over me. But these babies," Sophie begins, only to be cut off once more. "They're mine," Mia says firmly, though her voice trembles slightly. "Mine to raise, mine to protect. I won't let him waltz back into my life just because he feels guilty or obligated. That's not fair to me or to them." Sophie nods, sensing that pressing further won't help. Instead, she gives Mia's arm a reassuring squeeze. "All right, just promise me you'll take care of yourself, okay? You're carrying two little miracles right there." Mia manages a genuine smile this time, her fingers brushing lightly over her belly. "I will. Thanks, sophomore." As Sophie walks away, Mia takes a deep breath, steeling herself for the day ahead. But beneath her calm exterior lies a storm of emotions. Fear, uncertainty, and yes, even longing. Longing for the man she once loved, the man who broke her heart. She shakes her head, as if trying to clear the thought. No, she tells herself, Ethan Carter is part of her past, not her future. Later that afternoon, Mia finds herself wandering along the shoreline, her camera slung over her shoulder. The tide laps gently at the sand, the salty breeze tangling her hair. She kneels down to capture the play of light on the water, losing herself in the rhythm of the waves. It's moments like these that make her feel grounded, connected to something bigger than herself. But her peace is shattered when a sudden gust of wind knocks her off balance. She stumbles, catching herself awkwardly on one knee. Pain shoots through her side, and for a panicked moment, she presses both hands to her belly, her breath hitching. "No, no, no," she whispers, panic rising in her chest. She closes her eyes, willing herself to stay calm. After a few tense seconds, she feels movement, a flutter, a kick. Relief floods through her, but it's short-lived. She knows she needs to get off her feet to rest. As she struggles to stand, a shadow falls over her. Startled, she looks up and freezes. Standing there, dressed in a crisp suit that seems wildly out of place on this windswept beach, is Ethan Carter. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The world around them fades. The sound of the waves, the cries of seagulls. All that exists is the space between them, charged with unspoken words and years of pent-up emotion. "Ethan," Mia finally manages, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" Ethan crouches beside her, his expression unreadable. "I could ask you the same thing," he says, his voice low and steady. Are you hurt? I'm fine, she snaps, though her trembling hands betray her lie. Why are you here? Before he can answer, another sharp pain grips her side, and she winces involuntarily. Ethan sees it immediately, his demeanor shifting from guarded to alarmed. Without waiting for permission, he scoops her up into his arms, ignoring her protests. Put me down, Mia demands, struggling weakly against him. I'm fine, I can walk. You're not fine, he counters sharply, his grip tightening. And whether you like it or not, I'm taking you to the hospital. Their eyes meet, and for a fleeting second, the walls between them crumble. In that moment, Mia sees the same vulnerability in Ethan that she feels herself. The same fear, the same desperation. But just as quickly, she pushes it away, reminding herself of all the reasons she left him in the first place. Don't do this, she mutters, turning her face away. Don't act like you care now. Ethan's jaw tightens, but he doesn't respond. Instead, he carries her toward his car, parked a short distance away. As they drive in silence, the tension between them is palpable, thick enough to choke on. Yet beneath it lies an undeniable truth. Their lives are about to collide in ways neither of them could have anticipated. You didn't have to do this, Mia finally says, breaking the silence. Her voice is clipped, but there's an undercurrent of vulnerability that she can't quite mask. She stares out the window, avoiding his gaze. Do what? Ethan asks, his tone measured, though his jaw remains tense. Take you to the hospital? Forgive me if I thought your health, and the health of my children, was more important than your pride. Mia's head snaps toward him so fast it startles even herself. Your children? She repeats, her voice rising. You lost the right to call them that when you walked away from us. Ethan's hands tighten on the wheel, his lips pressing into a thin line. He doesn't respond immediately, choosing instead to focus on the road ahead. But the weight of her words hangs heavily between them, like storm clouds threatening to burst. I didn't walk away, he says finally, his voice low but laced with emotion. You left me. You packed up and disappeared without a word. Do you know what that did to me? Mia scoffs bitterly, shaking her head. That's rich coming from you. You were too busy building your empire to notice I was drowning. Don't act like you cared back then. You were never there. Her words hit him like a punch to the gut, leaving him momentarily speechless. He swallows hard, his throat dry. Maybe I wasn't, he admits quietly after a moment. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere until I understand why you kept this from me. Kept what? She demands, though her voice wavers slightly. She knows exactly what he's referring to, but denial has always been her armor against pain. The twins, he says bluntly, glancing at her briefly before returning his eyes to the road. You're pregnant with my babies. Why didn't you tell me? Mia turns away again, staring out the window as tears begin to well in her eyes. She bites her lip, trying to hold them back, but one slips free and trails down her cheek. Ethan notices, his heart clenching painfully in his chest. He hates seeing her cry. It always did something to him, unraveling the carefully constructed walls he'd built around himself. It doesn't matter, she whispers, her voice trembling. What's done is done. You wouldn't have wanted them anyway. How dare you say that? Ethan growls, his anger flaring despite his attempts to remain calm. How dare you assume you know what I would or wouldn't want? Those are my children, Mia, my flesh and blood. How could you keep them from me? Because I knew you'd only see them as another responsibility, she shouts suddenly, turning to face him fully now. Her eyes are blazing, wet with unshed tears. Another thing to add to your list of obligations while you chase deals and boardroom victories. I didn't want that life for them. For us. Her words hang in the air, raw and cutting, slicing through the tension like a knife. Ethan feels as though the wind has been knocked out of him. He opens his mouth to respond, but no words come out. Instead, he grips the wheel tighter, his mind racing with everything she said. They arrive at the hospital moments later, the sterile white lights of the emergency bay casting harsh shadows across their faces. Ethan parks hastily, rushing around to help Mia out of the car. She tries to wave him off, insisting she can manage on her own. But he ignores her protests, gently guiding her inside. Inside the hospital, the waiting room is eerily quiet, save for the soft murmur of nurses and the occasional beep of medical equipment. A nurse leads them to an examination room, where Mia is instructed to lie down while they run tests. Ethan hovers anxiously by her side, torn between wanting to comfort her and respecting the distance she clearly wants to maintain. As the doctor examines her, Mia keeps her gaze fixed on the ceiling, refusing to look at Ethan. The silence between them is heavy, charged with unspoken emotions. Finally, the doctor speaks, his voice calm but professional. "Everything seems stable for now," he says, addressing Mia. "But given the complications we discussed earlier, I strongly recommend bed rest for the remainder of your pregnancy. Stress and physical strain could put both you and the babies at risk." Mia nods numbly, her fingers gripping the edge of the exam table. Beside her, Ethan exhales sharply, running a hand through his hair. The reality of the situation hits him like a freight train. Mia is carrying his children, and she's been doing it alone. All this time, she's been struggling, suffering, and he had no idea. When the doctor leaves the room, Ethan finally speaks, his voice softer now, filled with regret. "Mia, I had no idea. If I'd known, if you'd told me, I would have been here. I swear to you." Mia closes her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "It's easy to say that now," she murmurs. "But actions speak louder than words, Ethan. You chose your work over me once. What makes you think it won't happen again?" Her question stuns him, not because it's unfair, but because it's true. He has no immediate answer, no clever rebuttal. All he can do is stand there, feeling utterly powerless. The tension lingers as they leave the hospital, the weight of unresolved issues hanging over them like a dark cloud. As they step outside, the cool night air greets them, offering little relief from the emotional storm brewing within. Ethan stops abruptly, turning to face Mia. "I'm staying," he says firmly, his voice resolute. "I don't care what you say or how much you push me away. I'm not leaving this town, or you, until we figure this out." Mia stares at him, her eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, she looks like she might argue, but exhaustion overtakes her, and she simply nods. "Fine," she says softly. "Stay, but don't expect forgiveness overnight." Ethan nods, understanding the gravity of her words. Forgiveness isn't something that can be demanded, it must be earned. And he intends to fight for it, no matter how long it takes. As they stand there beneath the starlit sky, the enormity of what lies ahead sinks in. Their lives are intertwined once more, bound together by the two tiny lives growing inside Mia. But whether they can overcome the past and build a future remains uncertain. When they finally arrive, Ethan parks the car but doesn't move to get out immediately. His hands rest on the steering wheel, his knuckles still white from gripping it too tightly throughout the evening. He glances at Mia, who sits stiffly in the passenger seat, her arms crossed over her belly protectively. She hasn't looked at him since they left the hospital, and he can feel the chasm between them widening with every passing second. "Mia," he begins hesitantly, his voice low and tinged with desperation. "We need to talk about this." She exhales sharply, shaking her head without meeting his gaze. "Not tonight, Ethan. I'm tired. I can't do this right now." Her tone isn't angry. It's weary, defeated. Cuts deeper than any sharp retort ever could. Ethan clenches his jaw, torn between respecting her wishes and pressing forward. He knows she's exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. But he also knows that avoiding the conversation won't solve anything. Still, he nods reluctantly. "All right," he says softly. "But tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow." Mia doesn't respond. Instead, she opens the car door and steps out slowly, wincing slightly as she straightens up. Ethan follows instinctively, rushing to her side to offer support. For a moment, she considers brushing him off, but the pain in her side forces her to accept his help. As they walk toward the house, their steps are slow and deliberate, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Inside, the cozy living room feels smaller than usual, its warmth overshadowed by the coldness. Radiating from Mia, she sinks onto the couch carefully, pulling a blanket around herself despite the mild evening. Ethan hovers awkwardly by the doorway, unsure whether to stay or leave. Finally, he takes a tentative step forward. "I'll call you a cab," Mia says abruptly, her eyes fixed on the floor. "You don't have to stay." Ethan freezes, his chest tightening. He had promised her, that he wouldn't abandon her again. Yet here she was, trying to push him away once more. "No," he says firmly, crossing the room to sit in the armchair opposite her. "I'm not going anywhere. Not tonight, not tomorrow. You're stuck with me, whether you like it or not." Mia looks up at him then, her eyes flashing with frustration. "Why are you doing this, Ethan? Why now? After all these months, after everything we've been through. You show up out of nowhere and expect me to believe you've changed." Her voice cracks on the last word, betraying the vulnerability she's trying so hard to hide. Ethan leans forward, his elbows resting on his knees as he searches for the right words. "Because I messed up," he admits, his voice raw with emotion. "I messed up so badly, Mia. I let my ambition blind me to what really mattered, you. And now I'm looking at the consequences of that mistake every time I look at you." He gestures toward her belly, his expression softening. "I see them, the twins, and I realize how much I've missed, how much I almost lost." Tears well in Mia's eyes, but she blinks them back furiously. "It's not enough to just say you're sorry, Ethan. Words don't fix things. They don't erase the nights I spent crying myself to sleep because I felt invisible to you. They don't change the fact that I had to choose between staying in a loveless marriage or walking away to save myself." Her voice breaks on the last sentence, and she quickly turns away, burying her face in her hands. Ethan watches her, his heart aching with guilt and regret. He wants to reach out, to pull her into his arms and promise her that he'll never hurt her again. But he knows she won't let him. "Not yet. I know," he whispers, his own voice trembling. "I know I failed you. I failed us. But please, Mia, give me a chance to make it right. Let me be here. For you, for the babies. Please." For a long moment, there's only silence. Then, Mia lowers her hands and looks at him, her eyes filled with conflicted emotions. "You don't even know what being here means," she says quietly. "This isn't some glamorous CEO role where you can delegate responsibilities or schedule meetings. This is real life, Ethan. These babies, they're not projects. They're people. My people. And mine," Ethan adds quickly, his voice firm despite the lump in his throat. "They're mine too, Mia. Whether you want to admit it or not, we're connected through them. And I can't walk away from that." Mia stares at him, her lips parted as if she wants to argue further, but no words come out. Instead, she sighs deeply, leaning back against the couch cushions. There's a weariness in her posture that makes Ethan ache even more. She's carrying so much, literally and figuratively, and he hates knowing that he's part of the burden she's bearing. "Fine," she says eventually, her voice barely audible. "Stay. Be here. But don't think for a second that this erases everything. Trust isn't something you can just demand, it has to be earned. And right now, Ethan, I don't trust you." Her words sting, but Ethan nods, accepting them. He deserves every ounce of doubt she feels. "I understand," he says simply, "and I'll earn it, whatever it takes." As the night wears on, Mia retreats to her bedroom, leaving Ethan alone in the living room. He sits there for a long time, staring at the empty space where she'd been moments ago. The house is quiet now, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Outside, the ocean waves crash rhythmically against the shore, a reminder of the vastness of the world and the enormity of the task ahead of him. Ethan leans back in the chair, closing his eyes as memories flood his mind. Flashes of happier times with Mia, the laughter, the stolen kisses, the dreams they once shared, play like a movie reel in his head. But those memories are tainted now, overshadowed by the mistakes he made and the distance he allowed to grow between them. He opens his eyes and glances toward the closed bedroom door, wondering if Mia is sleeping, or if she's lying awake, replaying their argument in her mind like he is. Either way, he knows one thing for certain. Rebuilding what they lost won't be easy. It will take time, patience, and countless acts of humility on his part. But he's ready, more than ready, to fight for her, for their family. Mia emerges from her room cautiously, wearing an oversized sweater and leggings, her hair tied back in a loose bun. She looks exhausted, dark circles underlining her eyes, but there's a quiet determination in the way she carries herself. When she sees Ethan still sitting there, her expression hardens slightly, though something flickers beneath the surface. A mix of surprise and perhaps reluctant gratitude. "You're still here," she says flatly, breaking the silence. Her tone isn't accusatory, but it's not welcoming either. Ethan stands slowly, running a hand over his face as if to shake off the fatigue. "I told you I wasn't going anywhere." She doesn't respond immediately, instead heading toward the kitchen. The sound of cabinets opening and closing fills the air as she begins preparing tea. Ethan hesitates for a moment before following her, leaning against the doorway of the small kitchen. "I made coffee," he offers, gesturing toward the pot on the counter. "Thought you might need it after last night." Mia pauses, glancing at him briefly before turning back to the kettle. "You didn't have to do that," she mutters, though her voice lacks its usual edge. "But thanks." There's a long pause between them, the kind that feels both heavy and delicate all at once. Ethan watches her carefully, noting the way her hands tremble slightly as she pours hot water into a mug. Finally, he speaks, his voice gentle but firm. "Mia, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. Not yet, but I want to understand. Tell me everything. The truth about why you left, why you didn't tell me about the twins." Her shoulders tense visibly at his words, and for a moment, it seems like she might shut him down completely. Instead, she sets the kettle down with a sharp clink and turns to face him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Why do you think?" she asks bitterly, though tears are already pooling in her eyes. "Do you even remember what our life was like before I left? Do you remember how many nights I sat alone at that table while you were holed up in your office, or jetting off to some meeting halfway around the world?" Ethan flinches, guilt washing over him like a tidal wave. Of course he remembers. How could he forget? Those late nights spent poring over spreadsheets and contracts, chasing deals that now seem meaningless compared to the cost they exacted on his marriage. "Every time I tried to talk to you," Mia continues, her voice rising slightly, "you brushed me off." "Not now, Mia. I'm busy, Mia. We'll figure it out later, Mia." She mimics his dismissive tone, her hands gesturing emphatically. Later never came, Ethan. And eventually, I stopped waiting. Ethan steps closer, his own emotions threatening to spill over. "I was wrong," he admits, his voice cracking. "So wrong. I thought I was building something for us, for our future, but I didn't realize I was destroying the only thing that mattered." Mia shakes her head, tears streaming freely down her cheeks now. "It wasn't just about the work, Ethan. It was about how you treated me. As if I existed in your orbit, not as your partner. As if my feelings didn't matter unless they aligned with your plans." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut, leaving him momentarily speechless. He had always prided himself on being strong, in control, but standing here now, facing the wreckage of his choices, he feels utterly powerless. "I see it now," he says quietly, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I treated you like an accessory to my life instead of the center of it. And I hate myself for that." Mia lets out a shaky breath, wiping at her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. For a moment, she looks like she wants to argue further, to keep lashing out at him. But then something shifts in her expression. A flicker of sadness replaces the anger, and she sinks onto one of the kitchen chairs, burying her face in her hands. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "I left because I couldn't keep living like that. I couldn't keep fighting for someone who didn't fight for me." Ethan kneels beside her, his heart breaking at the pain in her voice. Tentatively, he reaches out, placing a hand on hers. To his surprise, she doesn't pull away. "I should have fought harder," he says, his own voice thick with emotion. "I should have listened. I let my pride and my ambition blind me to what really mattered, us." They sit like that for several minutes, the silence between them no longer hostile but filled with unspoken understanding. Slowly, Mia lifts her head, looking at him with red-rimmed eyes. "What happens now?" she asks softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "How do we move forward when everything is so broken?" Ethan takes a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "One day at a time," he says. "We start by talking to each other honestly. No more walls, no more assumptions. Just truth." Mia nods slowly, though doubt still lingers in her expression. "And if it doesn't work? If we can't fix this?" He meets her gaze steadily, his resolve unwavering. "Then at least we'll know we tried. And whatever happens, I'll be here. For the twins. For you. Even if it's just as a friend or a co-parent. Whatever role you'll let me play, I'll take it." Something softens in Mia's eyes at his words, though she doesn't fully trust herself to believe him yet. Still, she offers him a small, tentative smile, one that holds a glimmer of hope amidst the pain. "Okay," she says quietly, "one day at a time." As the morning stretches on, the tension between them eases ever so slightly. They share breakfast together, their conversation cautious but genuine. Ethan listens intently as Mia talks about her photography work and her dreams of opening a small gallery someday. In turn, he shares stories about the challenges of running his company, though he makes a point to acknowledge how empty those victories felt without her by his side. For the first time in years, they laugh, a real, honest laugh. It's fleeting, fragile, but it's enough to remind them of the connection they once shared. Yet beneath the surface, unresolved wounds remain, and both know that healing will take far more than a single conversation. One afternoon, as Mia sits on the couch flipping through a baby names book, Ethan walks in carrying groceries. His tie is loosened, his sleeves rolled up, a stark contrast to the polished executive who once seemed untouchable. He sets the bags down on the counter and glances at her, noticing the way her brow furrows in concentration. "Still stuck on names?" he asks lightly, leaning against the kitchen island. Mia looks up, offering him a small smile. "Yeah, every time I think I found one I like, it feels wrong. Like I'm choosing something so permanent without knowing what kind of people they'll grow up to be." Ethan nods, moving to sit beside her. "It's a big decision," he says softly, "but you don't have to do it alone. Maybe we can brainstorm together." She hesitates for a moment, then hands him the book. "Fine, but if you suggest anything ridiculous, I reserve the right to veto it immediately." He chuckles, flipping through the pages. "Deal. Though I should warn you, I've always liked classic names. Nothing too flashy." As they pore over the book, their shoulders brushing occasionally, there's an ease between them that wasn't there before. A subtle, a shared laugh here, a lingering glance there, but it's enough to make Ethan feel like maybe, just maybe, they're inching closer to something resembling normalcy. Later that evening, after dinner, Mia insists on taking a short walk along the beach despite Ethan's protests about her needing rest. "I'm fine," she assures him, slipping on a light jacket. "Besides, fresh air is good for me and them." She pats her belly affectionately. Reluctantly, Ethan agrees to accompany her, staying close in case she needs support. The sun is setting, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and pink, and the sound of the waves provides a soothing backdrop to their conversation. "You know," Mia begins after a while, her voice thoughtful, "this place reminds me of when we first met." Ethan turns to look at her, surprise evident on his face. "Really? I thought you hated beaches." "I do," she admits with a soft laugh. "Or at least I did until I came here. There's something peaceful about it. Like the ocean washes everything away." They walk in silence for a few moments, the memories of their early days together surfacing unbidden. Ethan clears his throat, breaking the quiet. Do you remember that weekend trip to Santa Barbara? We stayed in that little inn overlooking the water. Mia smiles faintly, though there's a hint of sadness in her eyes. How could I forget? You spent half the weekend holed up in your laptop working on some deal, even though you promised me it would just be us. Guilt flashes across Ethan's face, and he looks down at the sand beneath his feet. I'm sorry, Mia, for that, and for everything else. I was selfish back then. I didn't realize how much I was taking you for granted. Her expression softens slightly, though she doesn't respond right away. Instead, she stops walking and turns to face him, her gaze searching his. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different? If you'd chosen differently? Ethan meets her eyes, his heart pounding in his chest. Every day, he admits, his voice barely above a whisper. I wonder what our lives would look like if I hadn't let my ambition consume me. If I hadn't pushed you away. Mia exhales shakily, tears welling in her eyes. Me too, she confesses. But wondering doesn't change anything, does it? We can't go back. No. Ethan agrees, stepping closer to her. We can't go back, but we can move forward together. If you'll let me. For a long moment, she studies him, weighing his words. Then slowly she nods. Okay, but promise me something, Ethan. Anything, he says earnestly. Promise me you won't disappear again. Not when things get hard, not when work gets busy. Promise me you'll fight. For us, for them. Ethan reaches out, gently taking her hand in his. I promise, he vows. His voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. No matter what, I'm here. For good. The next morning, Ethan wakes early, determined to prove his commitment. He spends hours rearranging the guest room in his rented cottage, transforming it into a makeshift nursery. By the time Mia arrives later that day, curious about where he's been all morning, she finds him standing proudly in front of the newly decorated space. What's all this? She asks, her tone laced with both amusement and disbelief. It's a start, Ethan says, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. I figured you shouldn't have to handle everything on your own. And besides, I wanted them to have somewhere to stay when they visit. Mia steps inside, taking in the freshly painted walls, the crib he assembled, though slightly crooked, and the shelves lined with stuffed animals and blankets. Her eyes glisten with unshed tears as she turns to face him. You didn't have to do this, she says softly, her voice trembling. I know, he replies, stepping closer. But I wanted to. For you. For them. For us. She looks at him then, really looks at him, and for the first time in years, she sees not just the man who broke her heart, but the man who's trying so desperately to put it back together. Slowly, she closes the distance between them, resting her head against his chest. Thank you, she whispers, her arms wrapping around him tentatively. Ethan holds her tightly, savoring the warmth of her embrace. In that moment, he allows himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they can build something new from the ashes of their past. One evening, as Mia sits on the porch of her home, sketching ideas for a photo exhibition she hopes to host after the twins are born, Ethan arrives with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. She looks up as he approaches, offering him a small smile. You didn't have to do that, she says, gesturing toward the bags in his hands. I know, he replies, setting the food down on the small table beside her. But I wanted to. Besides, you've been craving pad thai all week. Mia laughs softly, shaking her head. You're too observant sometimes. Not observant enough. Ethan mutters under his breath, though loud enough for her to hear. His tone carries a note of self-reproach, and Mia notices immediately. What's that supposed to mean? She asks, tilting her head curiously. Ethan hesitates, running a hand through his hair. He takes a seat across from her, his expression conflicted. It means, I'm trying, Mia. Every day, I'm trying to be better. For you, for the twins. But sometimes it feels like no matter how hard I try, I'll never make up for everything I messed up before. Mia sets her sketchpad aside, studying him intently. There's vulnerability in his eyes, raw and unguarded, and it tugs at something deep within her. For so long, she's held onto her anger, her pain, but seeing him struggle now makes it harder to cling to those feelings. No one expects you to be perfect, Ethan, she says gently. Least of all me. What matters is that you're here now, that you're trying. But is trying enough? He presses, his voice tinged with frustration. I look at you, at everything you've done on your own these past months, and I feel inadequate, like I'll never measure up. Mia reaches out, placing a hand over his. The gesture surprises even her. It's the first time she's initiated physical contact since he returned into her life. You don't have to measure up to anything, she tells him earnestly. Just keep showing up. Keep being present. That's all I need from you. Her words hang in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Ethan stares at her hand covering his, feeling the warmth of her touch seep into him. It's such a simple act, yet it feels monumental. A bridge slowly being rebuilt over the chasm of their past. Later that night, as they eat together under the soft glow of string lights strung across the porch, the conversation turns lighter. They talk about their favorite childhood memories, sharing stories neither had shared before. Mia recounts summers spent at her grandmother's farm, chasing fireflies and learning to bake pies. Ethan describes family vacations to Europe, where his love for architecture began. For a while, it feels almost normal, as if they're two people rediscovering each other without the weight of their history pressing down on them. But then, inevitably, the topic shifts back to the present. What happens when the twins are born? Mia asks suddenly, her voice hesitant. Do you plan to stay here? Or go back to San Francisco? Ethan freezes, fork halfway to his mouth. He hadn't expected this question, not yet. Truthfully, he hasn't allowed himself to think beyond the immediate future. But looking at Mia now, her eyes searching his for answers, he knows he owes her honesty. I want to stay, he says finally, setting his fork down. If you'll let me, I don't want to miss another moment. Not with them, not with you. Mia blinks, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. And your company? Your life there? I'll figure it out, he assures her, leaning forward slightly. I can delegate more. Hire someone to handle day-to-day operations. My priority has to be here with our family. His use of the word family sends a shiver down Mia's spine. It's the first time either of them has used it in reference to their current situation, and it feels right. Scary, but right. I don't know if I can trust that yet, she admits quietly, her gaze dropping to her lap. It's not that I don't believe you want to stay. It's that I'm afraid you'll realize you don't belong here, that this life isn't enough for you. Ethan reaches out, lifting her chin so their eyes meet. This life is more than enough, Mia. You're more than enough. I was the one who didn't see that before. She searches his face, looking for any sign of hesitation or insincerity. Finding none, she nods slowly. Okay, she whispers. We'll take it one step at a time. The next morning, Ethan wakes early and heads to the local hardware store, determined to finish assembling the crib he'd started weeks ago. When Mia joins him later, she finds him sprawled on the floor, surrounded by tools and instructions, sweat dripping from his brow. This thing is impossible, he groans, holding up a piece of wood that clearly doesn't fit where he's trying to attach it. Mia laughs, kneeling beside him. Let me guess. You skipped the instructions? Instructions are overrated, he grumbles, earning another laugh from her. Together, they work side by side, Mia guiding him through the process while Ethan follows her lead. As they assemble the crib piece by piece, the atmosphere between them shifts. It's no longer just about building furniture. It's about building something greater, a foundation for their future. By the time they finish, the sun is setting, casting a warm golden light through the windows. Ethan stands back, admiring their handiwork, while Mia runs her fingers lightly over the smooth wooden surface. It's perfect, she says softly, turning to smile at him. Ethan meets her gaze, his heart swelling with hope. Not perfect, he corrects her, but it's a start. One crisp morning, as Mia sits on the couch flipping through ultrasound photos, Ethan walks in holding his phone. His expression is unreadable, but there's a tightness in his jaw that sets Mia on edge. "What's wrong?" she asks immediately, sensing the change in his demeanor. Ethan hesitates, then exhales sharply. "It's my mother. She knows I'm here, and she's not happy about it." Mia raises an eyebrow, her tone dry. "Your mother doesn't strike me as someone who's ever happy about anything." He manages a small laugh, though it's humorless. "You're not wrong, but this time it's different. She called me this morning demanding answers. Why I'm staying in Carmel, why I haven't been back to the office as much, and..." He trails off, avoiding her gaze. "And what?" Mia prompts, her voice softening slightly. "And whether I know you're pregnant." He finishes, his shoulders sagging. Apparently, one of her sources tipped her off. Mia stiffens, her hands gripping the edges of the photo album tightly. "Great. Just what we needed, a Carter family intervention." "It's not just that," Ethan says quickly, sitting beside her. "She wants to meet you, both of us, together." Mia blinks, caught off guard. "What? Why?" "Because she thinks she can fix things." Ethan mutters bitterly. "She always does. If something isn't going according to her plan, she swoops in and tries to manipulate everyone until it aligns with her vision." Mia studies him, seeing the frustration etched into his features. "Do you think she'll try to interfere with us?" "I don't think I know," he admits, running a hand through his hair. "She'll probably insist I move back to San Francisco, hire nannies, turn our lives into some kind of controlled spectacle." "And what do you want?" Mia asks pointedly, her voice steady despite the unease bubbling inside her. Ethan turns to face her, his eyes filled with resolve. "I want to stay here with you, with our family. I don't care what she says or does. I'm not letting her dictate how we live our lives." Mia looks away, her heart torn between wanting to believe him and fearing the influence his mother wields. "Ethan, your mom is intense. What if she pressures you into leaving again? What if she convinces you that this life isn't enough?" "She won't," he says firmly, taking her hands in his. "Not this time. I've made my choice, Mia. It's you. It's us. No matter what she says or does, that's not changing." Later that week, they find themselves standing outside a luxurious estate perched atop a hill overlooking Monterey Bay. Ethan's mother, Evelyn Carter, has invited them for lunch. A thinly veiled attempt at interrogation, Mia suspects. As they approach the front door, Ethan squeezes Mia's hand reassuringly. "You don't have to say anything you don't want to," he murmurs. "I'll handle her." Mia nods, though her nerves are fraying. The door swings open before they can knock, revealing Evelyn herself. Tall, impeccably dressed, and exuding an air of icy elegance, she greets them with a polite smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Ethan, darling," she says, kissing him lightly on the cheek. "And this must be Mia." Her gaze sweeps over Mia, lingering briefly on her rounded belly before returning to her face. "Such a pleasure to finally meet you." "The pleasure's mine," Mia replies politely, forcing a smile despite the chill radiating from Evelyn. They're ushered into a grand dining room where a lavish spread awaits. The table gleams with fine china and crystal glasses, but the atmosphere feels anything but warm. As they take their seats, Evelyn wastes no time getting to the point. "So, Ethan tells me you're expecting twins," she begins, her tone pleasant yet probing. "Congratulations. Quite the undertaking, raising children these days." "Thank you," Mia says cautiously, glancing at Ethan. "We're excited, even if it's a little overwhelming." Evelyn nods, sipping her tea delicately. "Indeed, which is why I've taken the liberty of arranging for a nanny service. Someone experienced, of course, to assist once the babies arrive. You'll need all the help you can get." Mia freezes, her fork clattering against her plate. "A nanny? That's very generous of you, but unnecessary. We'll manage just fine." "Oh, I'm sure you would," Evelyn replies smoothly. "But Ethan's responsibilities require his full attention. He simply can't afford to be distracted by late-night feedings or diaper changes." Ethan leans forward, his voice firm. Mother, I appreciate your concern, but Mia and I will decide what's best for our family. Not you. Evelyn's smile falters for a split second before she recovers, turning her attention to Mia. Of course, dear. I only mean to help. After all, balancing work and parenthood is no easy feat, surely you understand that. Mia meets her gaze steadily, her voice calm but unwavering. Actually, I think it's pretty clear that Ethan's priority should be here with his children. With us. If he truly wants to be a good father and husband, that's where his focus needs to be. The room falls silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Evelyn stares at Mia, her expression unreadable, while Ethan watches the exchange with a mix of pride and apprehension. Finally, Evelyn sets down her teacup with a soft clink. Well, it seems you've given this a great deal of thought. Very well, then. I suppose I'll leave the details to the two of you. On the drive home, Mia lets out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. That was intense. Ethan chuckles, though there's admiration in his voice. You were incredible back there. Standing up to my mother like that. It's not something most people would dare to do. I wasn't trying to pick a fight, Mia admits. I needed her to know where I stand. Where we stand. Ethan reaches over, squeezing her hand. Thank you, he says softly, for believing in me, in us. Mia smiles faintly, though her mind races with questions. Will Evelyn accept their decision, or will she find another way to interfere? And more importantly, can Ethan hold firm against the pressures of his old life? One evening, Mia sits on the couch in her living room, flipping absently through a parenting magazine. Her brow is furrowed, and her fingers tremble slightly as they trace the edge of the page. Ethan notices immediately when he walks in after a long day of work calls. He sets his laptop aside and kneels beside her, concern etched across his face. What's wrong? He asks gently, placing a hand on her knee. Mia hesitates, then exhales sharply. I went to the doctor today, she says quietly, avoiding his gaze. Ethan's expression shifts from concern to alarm. Is everything okay? The babies? Are they all right? They're fine, she assures him quickly, though her voice wavers. But the doctor said I need strict bed rest for the next few weeks. My blood pressure's been high, and there's some risk of complications if I don't take it easy. Ethan's heart sinks. He had known Mia was struggling physically, but hearing the severity of her condition makes it all too real. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asks, his tone tinged with hurt. I didn't want to worry you, she admits, finally meeting his eyes. You already have so much on your plate. Work, dealing with your mom, everything. I thought I could handle it. You don't have to handle this alone anymore, he says firmly, taking her hands in his. That's why I'm here, Mia, to share the load, to take care of you and them. Tears well in her eyes, and she looks away, blinking rapidly. It's just hard, Ethan. Harder than I thought it would be. I feel like I'm failing before we even start. You're not failing, he insists, his voice thick with emotion. You're carrying 2 lives inside you. That's incredible. And yeah, it's scary, but we'll get through this together. I promise. Later that night, as Mia lies in bed staring at the ceiling, Ethan sits on the edge of the mattress, watching her silently. She's restless, tossing and turning despite the exhaustion written across her features. Can't sleep? He asks softly, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. She shakes her head, sighing deeply. I keep thinking about what happens if something goes wrong. What if I can't give them the life they deserve? Her voice cracks on the last word, and Ethan feels his chest tighten. He moves closer, pulling her into his arms carefully. She resists for a moment, but then relaxes against him, burying her face in his shoulder. That's not going to happen, he whispers, pressing a kiss to her temple. We're going to do everything we can to make sure you and they are safe. You're stronger than you think, Mia. Stronger than anyone I know. But what if it's not enough? She murmurs, her voice muffled against his shirt. What if I lose them? Or worse, What if I lose you again because of this? Her words hit him like a punch to the gut, leaving him momentarily speechless. He pulls back slightly, cupping her face in his hands so she has no choice but to look at him. Listen to me, he says, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever. This isn't just your fight. It's ours. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Do you hear me? Mia stares at him, searching his eyes for any sign of hesitation or insincerity. Finding none, she nods slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Okay, she whispers. Together. The next morning, Ethan springs into action, determined to ensure Mia follows the doctor's orders. He clears out the guest room in his cottage, transforming it into a makeshift sanctuary where she can rest comfortably. By the time she arrives later that afternoon, the space is ready. Soft blankets, stacks of books and magazines, and even a small TV mounted on the wall. This is ridiculous. Mia protests half-heartedly as Ethan helps her settle in. I'm not an invalid. You're doing exactly what the doctor ordered, he counters firmly, tucking a pillow behind her back. Besides, I've already arranged for someone to help around the house, a nurse who specializes in high-risk pregnancies. She'll check in daily to monitor your vitals and make sure everything's okay. Mia raises an eyebrow, crossing her arms over her chest. And when did you decide all of this? Last night, he admits, sitting beside her. After you fell asleep, I couldn't stop thinking about how scared you were and how much I hate seeing you like this. So I made some calls. For a long moment, Mia studies him, her expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, she smiles. A small, grateful smile that reaches her eyes. You really mean it, don't you? All this, being here, helping me. Yes, he says simply, reaching for her hand. Because you matter, Mia. More than anything else in my life right now. Her smile falters slightly, and she looks away, her voice barely above a whisper. Just, don't let me down, Ethan. Please. He squeezes her hand tightly, his resolve unwavering. Never again. Over the coming weeks, Ethan becomes Mia's constant companion and caregiver. He wakes early to prepare meals, fetches whatever she needs without complaint, and spends hours sitting by her side, reading aloud or simply talking about their hopes and fears for the future. Slowly but surely, Mia begins to let her guard down, allowing herself to lean on him in ways she hadn't dared before. One afternoon, as they sit together watching old movies, Mia turns to him suddenly, her expression serious. Do you ever regret coming back here? To me. Ethan pauses the movie, turning to face her fully. No, he says without hesitation. Not for a second. Why? She shrugs, looking down at her lap. I guess I just wonder sometimes. If things had turned out differently, if I told you about the twins sooner, would we still be here? Like this? We can't change the past, Mia, he replies softly, lifting her chin so their eyes meet. All we can do is focus on the present and the future. And right now, I wouldn't trade this for anything. Being here with you, helping you, getting ready to meet our babies. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. His words linger in the air between them, heavy with meaning. For the first time in months, Mia allows herself to believe, not just in Ethan's promises, but in the possibility of a new beginning for them both. One morning, as Ethan sits at the kitchen table reviewing emails on his laptop, his phone buzzes insistently. It's his assistant, Rachel, calling from San Francisco. He ignores it at first, focusing instead on preparing breakfast for Mia. But when the calls persist, he steps outside to answer. What is it, Rachel? He asks tersely, his voice low so as not to disturb Mia inside. Ethan, I'm sorry to bother you, but this can't wait, Rachel says, her tone urgent. The board is pushing for an emergency meeting tomorrow. They're concerned about your absence and want updates on the merger negotiations. Ethan pinches the bridge of his nose, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. I told them I'd handle everything remotely. Can't they manage without me for a few more weeks? They're saying it's critical, Rachel replies apologetically. If you don't show up, they might consider bringing in someone else temporarily, maybe permanently. Ethan exhales sharply, running a hand through his hair. The weight of the decision presses down on him, heavy and suffocating. On one hand, his company, the empire he built from scratch, needs him. On the other, Mia and the twins need him even more. "I'll call you back," he mutters before hanging up, his mind racing. When Ethan returns inside, Mia looks up from the book she's been reading. She notices the tension in his posture immediately, the way his jaw is clenched tight. "What's wrong?" she asks, setting the book aside. He hesitates, then sits across from her, his expression conflicted. "It's work. The board wants me back in San Francisco for a meeting tomorrow." Mia's heart sinks, though she tries to mask her disappointment. "How long will you be gone?" "That's the thing," he admits, avoiding her gaze. "They didn't say. Could be a day, could be longer." Silence stretches between them, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, Mia speaks, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "You should go." Ethan's head snaps up, surprise flashing across his face. "What? No. I promised I wouldn't leave you, not now. And I appreciate that," she says softly, reaching out to take his hand. "But Ethan, this is your life, your company. You can't just abandon it forever because of me." "That's not what this is about," he insists, gripping her hand tightly. "This isn't just some obligation. It's my choice, to be here, with you, with our family." "I know," she whispers, tears welling in her eyes. "But if you stay, if you keep putting everything else aside for me, you'll resent me eventually. And I couldn't bear that." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut, leaving him momentarily speechless. He opens his mouth to argue, but she cuts him off gently. "Please, Ethan, go. Do what you need to do. I'll be fine, I promise." The next morning, Ethan stands by the door, his suitcase packed and ready. He looks at Mia, who's sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket, her expression calm but distant. "Are you sure about this?" he asks one last time, his voice tinged with uncertainty. She nods, forcing a small smile. "Yes, go save your empire. Just don't forget why you came back here in the first place." "I won't," he promises, stepping closer to kiss her forehead. "I'll be back as soon as I can. I swear." As he drives away, Mia watches from the window, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. Part of her believes she's doing the right thing, encouraging him to fulfill his responsibilities. But another part fears that once he's back in San Francisco, he'll realize how much easier his old life was without her. In San Francisco, Ethan throws himself into work, attending meetings, negotiating deals, and addressing the mounting issues within the company. But no matter how hard he tries to focus, his thoughts keep drifting back to Mia, to the image of her sitting alone on the couch, smiling bravely while masking her fear. During a particularly grueling board meeting, Evelyn walks in unexpectedly, her presence commanding immediate attention. She takes a seat beside Ethan, her sharp eyes scanning the room before settling on him. "You look tired, darling," she remarks coolly. "Perhaps it's time to reconsider your priorities." Ethan stiffens, his patience wearing thin. "Not now, Mother." "Oh, but it is now," she counters smoothly. "Your absence has caused chaos in the company. Surely you see that your place is here, not playing house in Carmel." "It's not playing house," Ethan snaps, his voice rising slightly. "Those are my children, Mother, my family, and they come first." Evelyn raises an eyebrow, unfazed by his outburst. "Family doesn't pay bills, Ethan. Family doesn't keep shareholders happy. If you continue down this path, you risk losing everything, including the very foundation you worked so hard to build." Her words echo in his mind long after the meeting ends. As he sits alone in his office later that evening, staring out at the city skyline, doubt begins to creep in. Is he making the right choice? Or is he sacrificing too much for a life he's not sure he's ready to fully embrace? Meanwhile, back in Carmel, Mia struggles with her own doubts. Though the nurse visits daily and checks on her, The loneliness is overwhelming. One night, unable to sleep, she picks up her phone and scrolls through old photos of her and Ethan, from happier times before the cracks in their marriage began to show. A sudden pain in her side jolts her back to reality. She gasps, clutching her belly as another wave of discomfort washes over her. Panic sets in as she realizes something is wrong. "Help!" she whispers, reaching for the emergency contact number the doctor gave her. Her hands tremble as she dials, tears streaming down her face. Hours later, Ethan's phone rings in the middle of yet another late-night strategy session. When he sees Mia's name flash across the screen, his heart stops. "Mia? What's wrong?" he asks, already rushing toward the elevator. "It's the babies," she says, her voice trembling. "I'm at the hospital. Something's happening." Without hesitation, Ethan grabs his coat and sprints to his car, his mind consumed by fear and guilt. He had promised to be there for her, and now, when she needs him most, he's hundreds of miles away. As he speeds down the highway, the rain pouring heavily outside mirroring the storm in his heart, one thought consumes him. "Please let me make it in time. She's stable for now," the nurse had said, "but we're monitoring her closely. It's best if you get here soon." Soon. The word echoes in his chest, heavy and suffocating. He presses harder on the accelerator, ignoring speed limits and the storm raging outside. His phone buzzes repeatedly with updates from work, but he silences it without looking, focusing only on the road ahead, and the woman waiting for him at the end of it. When Ethan finally arrives at the hospital hours later, soaked from the rain and visibly shaken, he rushes to the front desk, his voice trembling. "Mia Carter. Where is she?" The receptionist glances up, taking in his disheveled appearance before pointing down the hall. "Room 214. Down that corridor. Turn left." He doesn't wait for further instructions, sprinting toward the room with desperation fueling every step. When he reaches the door, he pauses briefly, bracing himself before stepping inside. Mia lies in the bed, pale and fragile, her eyes closed as she rests. A monitor beeps steadily beside her, tracking both her vitals and those of the twins. For a moment, Ethan stands frozen, overwhelmed by the sight of her so vulnerable. Then, slowly, he approaches, pulling a chair close to her bedside. "Mia," he whispers, his voice cracking. "I'm here." Her eyes flutter open, and when she sees him, relief floods her features. But so does something else, pain. Not just physical, but emotional. She tries to sit up slightly, wincing as she does. "You came," she murmurs, her voice weak but filled with gratitude. "Of course I came," he says firmly, taking her hand in his. "I told you I wouldn't leave you. Not again." Tears well in her eyes, spilling silently down her cheeks. I thought maybe you'd realize how much easier your life would be without me. Without all this." Ethan shakes his head vehemently, his own tears threatening to spill over. "No, Mia, don't ever think that. You are my life now. This us, the twins, it's everything I want. Everything I need." She looks away, her gaze fixed on the window where rain streaks the glass. What if it's not enough? What if I can't give them the life they deserve? What if I lose them? Her voice breaks on the last word, and Ethan leans forward, cupping her face gently to make her look at him. "We're not losing anyone," he insists, his tone unwavering despite the fear clawing at his insides. "You hear me? We're gonna fight for them, for all of us. Together." For a long moment, they simply stare at each other, the weight of their shared fears and hopes hanging between them. Finally, Mia nods, her grip tightening on his hand. "Okay," she whispers. "Together." Later that night, after the doctors have reassured them that Mia and the twins are stable, for now, Ethan remains by her side, refusing to leave even when the nurses suggest he rest. He sits in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand as she drifts in and out of sleep. At one point, she wakes briefly, her expression pained but resolute. "Ethan," she says softly, her voice barely audible, "if something happens, promise me you'll be okay." His heart clenches painfully at her words, but he forces himself to stay calm. "Nothing's going to happen," he replies, leaning closer. "But if it does, if anything changes, you have my word. I'll take care of them. Of everything. Just like I'll take care of you." Mia studies him, searching his eyes for any sign of doubt or hesitation. Finding none, she offers him a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," she murmurs before closing her eyes once more. The next morning, as dawn breaks through the rain-soaked sky, Ethan steps into the hallway to speak with the doctor. The man explains that while Mia's condition is critical, it's manageable with strict bed rest and constant monitoring. There's still risk involved, but hope remains. As Ethan processes the information, Evelyn's voice suddenly interrupts his thoughts. He turns to see her standing at the end of the hall, impeccably dressed as always, her expression unreadable. "What are you doing here?" he asks, his tone sharp. "I heard about Mia," she says coolly, stepping closer, "and I wanted to see for myself whether this situation was worth jeopardizing your career over." Ethan's jaw tightens, anger simmering beneath the surface. "This situation is my family, Mother. My wife, my children. And yes, they're worth everything." Evelyn raises an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Even if it costs you your company? Your legacy?" "Yes," he snaps, his voice rising slightly. "Because none of that matters if I lose them. None of it means anything without them." For a brief moment, Evelyn looks almost surprised by his conviction. But then her mask slips back into place, and she sighs dismissively. "Very well. If this is the path you've chosen, don't expect me to pick up the pieces when it falls apart." "It won't fall apart," Ethan says firmly, stepping closer to her. "Not this time, because I'm not alone anymore. I have Mia, and no matter what you say or do, nothing will change that." Evelyn stares at him for a long moment before turning on her heel and walking away, leaving Ethan standing there, breathing heavily. As he watches her go, a strange sense of clarity washes over him. For the first time in years, he feels certain of who he is and who he wants to be. Back in Mia's room, Ethan sits beside her once more, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. She stirs slightly, opening her eyes to find him watching her. "Your mom was here," she says quietly, her voice tinged with concern. "I know," he replies, pressing a kiss to her temple. "But she doesn't matter. Only you do. Only us." Mia smiles faintly, reaching up to touch his cheek. "You really mean that, don't you?" "With everything I am," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you, Mia. Always have. Always will." Her eyes fill with tears, but this time, they're tears of joy rather than fear. "I love you too, Ethan," she whispers, more than words can say. As they sit there together, hands intertwined and hearts beating as one, the storm outside begins to subside. The road ahead remains uncertain, fraught with challenges neither of them can fully anticipate. But for the first time in a long time, one afternoon, as Mia lies in her hospital bed surrounded by pillows and blankets, Ethan sits beside her, reading aloud from a parenting book he picked up at the gift shop. His voice is steady, though there's a nervous energy in the way he occasionally glances at her, checking for any sign of discomfort. Chapter 5. Bonding with Your Newborn. He reads, then pauses, looking up at her with a sheepish grin. "I'm not sure how much of this applies to us yet, but I figured it couldn't hurt to start preparing." Mia chuckles softly, though her smile is tinged with sadness. "You realize we'll probably forget half of what's in that book once they're actually here, right?" "Probably," Ethan admits with a small laugh. "But hey, at least we'll know we tried." There's a warmth in their exchange, a lightness that hasn't been present in weeks. It's as if, amidst the fear and uncertainty, they've found a sliver of hope. Slowly, they're learning to lean on each other again, to trust that no matter how hard things get, they won't face them alone. Later that evening, after the nurses have finished their rounds and the hallway grows quiet, Mia turns to Ethan, her expression serious. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Anything," he replies immediately, setting the book aside and giving her his full attention. What happens if I can't do this? She asks hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. If I can't give them the life they deserve? What if I fail them before they even arrive? Her words hang heavy in the air, laden with all the fears she's kept bottled up inside. Ethan reaches out, taking her hand in his and holding it firmly. You won't fail them, Mia, he says, his voice unwavering despite the lump in his throat. Because failing isn't an option. We're in this together every step of the way, and if things get harder, we'll figure it out. Together. Tears well in her eyes, and she looks away, trying to compose herself. It's just so much responsibility, so many unknowns. I know, he murmurs, brushing a tear from her cheek. But you're stronger than you think, stronger than anyone I've ever known, and you don't have to carry this burden alone. That's why I'm here, to share it with you. For a long moment, Mia studies him, searching his eyes for any trace of doubt or hesitation. Finding none, she nods slowly, her grip tightening on his hand. Okay, she whispers. Together. As the days turn into weeks, Ethan becomes a constant presence in Mia's life. Not just as her partner, but as her rock. He spends hours researching high-risk pregnancies, consulting specialists, and ensuring she has everything she needs to stay comfortable. At night, when insomnia strikes and anxiety threatens to overwhelm her, he stays awake with her, talking about anything and everything to distract her from the weight of their situation. One night, as they sit side by side in the dimly lit hospital room, Mia leans her head against his shoulder, her voice soft and vulnerable. Do you ever think about what they'll be like? Our babies, all the time, Ethan admits, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Sometimes I imagine them running around, laughing, getting into trouble. Other times, I wonder which of us they'll take after more, you or me. Mia smiles faintly, closing her eyes as she pictures the same thing. I hope they inherit your determination, she says quietly. And maybe my patience. Ethan laughs softly, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. We'll need both if we're going to survive parenthood. Their laughter fades into a comfortable silence, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the monitors nearby. In that moment, surrounded by uncertainty but grounded in each other's presence, they allow themselves to dream, not just of the challenges ahead, but of the joy that awaits them. A few weeks later, Mia is finally discharged from the hospital, under strict orders to continue bed rest at home. Ethan transforms his cottage into a sanctuary for her, setting up a cozy corner in the living room where she can relax while still feeling connected to the world outside. He installs a baby monitor system, stocks the fridge with her favorite snacks, and even sets up a playlist of calming music to help her sleep. Despite the improvements, however, Mia struggles with feelings of isolation. One afternoon, as Ethan tends to some work emails in the kitchen, she calls out to him, her voice tinged with frustration. I feel useless, she admits, tears shining in her eyes. Like I'm just sitting here while everyone else does all the work. Ethan sets his laptop aside and kneels beside her, taking her hands in his. You're doing the most important work of all, Mia. You're keeping our baby safe. That's not useless. It's heroic. She shakes her head, her voice breaking. But what if I mess it up? What if I make the wrong decision or miss something crucial? You won't, he insists firmly, because you're not alone. I'm here every step of the way. Whatever you need, whenever you need it, I've got you. His reassurance seems to ease some of her tension, though the fear remains etched in her features. She leans forward, resting her forehead against his. Thank you, she whispers, her voice trembling, for not giving up on me. Never, he replies, pulling her into a gentle embrace. Not now, not ever. As the due date approaches, the anticipation builds, not just for the arrival of the twins, but for the new chapter in Ethan and Mia's lives. They spend their days preparing the nursery, attending prenatal classes via video call, and discussing names until they finally settle on two that feel perfect. Lucas and Sophia. One evening, as they sit together watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, Mia turns to Ethan, her expression thoughtful. Do you think we're ready for this? For everything that's coming? Ethan takes a deep breath, considering her question carefully. Honestly, no, I don't think anyone is truly ready for something like this. But I also know that as long as we have each other, we'll figure it out. One day at a time. Mia nods, leaning her head against his shoulder. One day at a time, she echoes softly. Suddenly, a sharp gasp pulls Ethan awake. He blinks groggily, his heart pounding as he sees Mia clutching her belly, her face pale but determined. Ethan, she says urgently, her voice strained. It's time. His stomach drops, adrenaline surging through him as the reality sinks in. This is it, the moment they've been preparing for, dreading, and dreaming of all at once. Okay, he says quickly, scrambling to his feet. Let's get you to the hospital. The drive to the hospital feels surreal, like stepping into a scene from a movie. Mia grips the door handle tightly, breathing through contractions while Ethan drives faster than he ever has before, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Each labored breath she takes fills the car with tension, but also an unspoken determination. They're doing this together. When they arrive, Ethan helps Mia out of the car, supporting her weight as she leans heavily on him. The nurses rush to their aid, guiding them inside and whisked away to the delivery room. As medical staff prepare Mia, Ethan stays by her side, holding her hand and whispering words of encouragement. You've got this, Mia, he says, his voice trembling but resolute. You're the strongest person I know. Mia manages a small smile despite the pain coursing through her body. Just promise me you won't faint, she jokes weakly, squeezing his hand. I'll try not to, he replies, forcing a laugh even as tears well in his eyes. But no guarantees. Hours pass in a blur of intensity. Contractions, coaching from doctors, and the overwhelming rush of emotions that come with bringing new life into the world. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the first cry pierces the air. A tiny, wriggling form is placed into Mia's arms, wrapped snugly in a soft blue blanket. It's Lucas, the nurse announces softly, smiling warmly at the couple. Ethan stares down at his son, tears streaming freely down his face. He's perfect, he whispers, his voice choked with emotion. Absolutely perfect. Moments later, another cry joins the first, and Sophia is brought to Mia's other arm. The sight of their twins nestled against her chest leaves Ethan speechless. He reaches out, gently brushing a finger against each of their tiny hands, marveling at how impossibly small yet complete they feel. They're here, Mia murmurs, her own voice thick with tears. Our babies. They're finally here. Ethan leans down, kissing her forehead tenderly. We did it, Mia. Together. After the initial whirlwind of excitement, the exhaustion sets in. Mia drifts off to sleep, cradling Sophia while Ethan holds Lucas, rocking him gently in the hospital chair. For the first time in months, the weight pressing on his chest lifts, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude and awe. As he watches his daughter sleep peacefully in Mia's arms, Ethan reflects on everything they've overcome to reach this moment. The arguments, the doubts, the fears, it all seems insignificant now compared to the miracle unfolding before him. Thank you, he whispers to Mia, though she's too asleep to hear, for trusting me, for letting me be part of this. Later that evening, when Mia wakes, Ethan hands her Lucas so she can feed him while he tends to Sophia. They sit in comfortable silence, their movements synchronized as if they've been doing this for years. Every now and then, one of them will glance up, catching the other's eye, and share a knowing smile. This is real now, Mia says softly, breaking the quiet. No more imagining or planning. They're ours. Yes, Ethan agrees, his gaze fixed lovingly on Sophia. And we're theirs. No matter what happens next, we're their parents. Their team. Mia nods, her expression thoughtful. Do you think we'll be good at it? Being parents? Ethan hesitates, then chuckles softly. Probably not at first, but we'll learn. Together. Her lips curve into a tired but content smile. Together. As the night wears on, Nurses come and go, checking vitals and offering congratulations. Friends and family call to express their joy, though Ethan politely declines visitors, wanting to keep these precious first moments private. Instead, he focuses on Mia and the twins, committing every detail to memory. The way Lucas furrows his brow in his sleep, the way Sophia's fingers curl instinctively around his pinky. At one point, Mia looks over at him, her eyes shining with emotion. "Do you remember when we thought we'd never make it here? That maybe we weren't meant to have this?" Ethan nods, leaning closer to kiss her temple. "I remember, but look at us now. Look at them. We made it, Mia. Against all odds, we made it." She smiles, tears brimming once more. Maybe that's why they're here, to remind us that love can overcome anything. He doesn't respond immediately, instead pulling her into a gentle embrace, careful not to disturb the sleeping infants. In that moment, surrounded by the evidence of their love and resilience, Ethan knows she's right. Love and trust have carried them through the darkest times, and they'll continue to guide them forward. One evening, as Mia rocks Sophia to sleep in the nursery, Ethan stands in the doorway, watching her with a mixture of awe and admiration. The soft glow of the nightlight casts a warm hue over the room, highlighting the gentle way she cradles their daughter. "You're amazing, you know that?" he says softly, breaking the silence. Mia looks up, startled for a moment before offering him a small, tired smile. "Hardly. I'm just trying not to mess them up too badly." Ethan steps closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing more than trying, you're succeeding. Look at her. She's perfect." Sophia stirs slightly in Mia's arms, letting out a contented sigh as she drifts deeper into sleep. Mia adjusts the blanket around her, then carefully places her in the crib, lingering for a moment to ensure she's settled. "She's your spitting image?" Ethan murmurs, his gaze fixed on their daughter. "Same nose, same stubborn little chin." Mia chuckles quietly, turning to face him. "And Lucas is all you, determined and impatient. He cries until he gets what he wants." "Sounds like someone else I know," Ethan teases, earning a playful swat on the arm. They share a laugh, the kind that eases the tension of long days and restless nights. But beneath the levity lies a deeper truth. They found a rhythm, however imperfect, that works for them. Each challenge they face together strengthens the bond they've worked so hard to rebuild. Later that week, Ethan finds himself sitting at the kitchen table late at night, staring at his laptop screen. Work emails pile up unanswered, reminders of the responsibilities waiting for him in San Francisco. He knows he can't ignore them forever, but the thought of leaving Mia and the twins, even temporarily, fills him with dread. Mia walks in, wrapping a robe tightly around herself as she notices the troubled expression on his face. "What's wrong?" she asks, pulling out a chair beside him. He hesitates, closing the laptop reluctantly. "It's work. They need me back in the office, at least part-time. I've been putting it off, but you can't keep avoiding it." Mia finishes for him, her tone understanding yet tinged with concern. "Ethan, you knew this day would come eventually." "I did," he admits, running a hand through his hair. "But now that it's here, I don't want to leave. Not after everything we've been through." Mia reaches out, covering his hand with hers. "You don't have to choose between us and your career. You proved that already. You've balanced both these past few months. We'll figure it out, just like we always do." Her reassurance soothes some of his anxiety, though doubts linger. "What if I can't? What if being pulled in two directions tears us apart again?" "It won't," she says firmly, her voice steady despite the uncertainty in her own heart. "Because we're stronger now, stronger than we were before. And besides," she smiles faintly, glancing toward the nursery, "we have two very persuasive reasons to make this work." Ethan follows her gaze, his chest tightening with emotion. "You're right. I don't want to lose what we've built." "You won't," Mia promises, squeezing his hand. "Not as long as we keep communicating. No secrets, no assumptions. Just honesty." He nods, drawing strength from her words. "Okay, I'll go back. but only part-time, and I'll make sure my schedule revolves around you and the twins. This family comes first, always." True to his word, Ethan begins splitting his time between Carmel and San Francisco, commuting several days a week while delegating more responsibilities to trusted colleagues. It's not easy. Long hours and constant travel take their toll, but he refuses to let work overshadow his role as a father and partner. One afternoon, as Mia feeds Lucas in the living room, Ethan walks in carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. Her eyes widen in surprise as he sets them on the coffee table. "What's this for?" she asks, gesturing to the flowers. "For you," he replies simply, dropping a kiss on her forehead. "For holding down the fort while I've been gone. For being the incredible woman you are." Mia blushes, shaking her head. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," he insists, sitting beside her. "You deserve to be reminded how much you mean to me, to us." She leans into him, resting her head on his shoulder as Lucas continues to nurse. "I appreciate it, Ethan. More than you know." They sit in comfortable silence, the quiet interrupted only by the soft sounds of Lucas's contentment. After a moment, Ethan speaks again, his voice hesitant. "Do you ever think about getting married again?" he asks, his tone cautious. "I mean properly this time. Not because we have to, but because we want to." Mia stiffens slightly, taken aback by the question. I don't know. I haven't thought about it much." "Would you consider it?" he presses gently, searching her eyes. "Not now, maybe not even soon, but someday, when we're ready." She studies him for a long moment, weighing his sincerity against the memories of their failed marriage. Finally, she nods slowly. "Maybe, someday, if it feels right." Relief washes over his face, and he pulls her closer, kissing her temple. "Thank you," he whispers, "for considering it, for trusting me enough to even entertain the idea." Mia smiles faintly, leaning into his embrace. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" "We have," he agrees, his voice thick with emotion. "And we're not done yet." As the weeks turn into months, Ethan and Mia settle into their new normal. They celebrate milestones, Lucas rolling over for the first time, Sophia giggling uncontrollably at the sound of her father's voice, and navigate challenges together, from teething tantrums to sleep regressions. Through it all, they grow closer, their love deepening with each passing day. One evening, as they sit on the porch watching the sunset, Mia turns to Ethan, her expression thoughtful. "Do you ever wonder what our lives would look like if none of this had happened? If we hadn't lost each other before finding our way back?" Ethan considers her question, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Sometimes, but then I realize something. Without those struggles, without the pain and the mistakes, we wouldn't be who we are now. We wouldn't appreciate this, the second chance we've been given." Mia nods, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I guess some things are worth fighting for." "They are," he agrees, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Especially us." One crisp morning, as Mia sits on the porch sipping coffee while the twins play on a blanket nearby, Ethan approaches hesitantly, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He's been quiet all week, distracted by thoughts he hasn't yet shared with her. When she notices him standing there, she sets her mug down and raises an eyebrow. "You look like you're about to deliver bad news," she says lightly, though there's a flicker of concern in her eyes. "What's going on?" Ethan exhales sharply, pulling up a chair beside her. "It's not bad news, exactly, but I've been thinking about us, about everything." Mia stiffens slightly, her gaze shifting to the twins before returning to him. "Okay, go on." "I've decided to step down as CEO of Carter Enterprises," he blurts out, his voice trembling with emotion. "I'm handing the reins over to Rachel. She's